Welcome to Excel 2016 Module 11, Part 5. In this segment, we're going to be creating a data model. So we will be querying a Microsoft Access database and a CSV file to create a data model that we can use for further analysis. We will later use it to create pivot tables. So we're going to start by opening up a file that you downloaded from your Q drive at the beginning of the semester. We want to open the product workbook that is in the Module 11 module folder. With that workbook open, we want to go and save it as a file called Product Report. We're going to choose File, Save As, and we're going to browse and give it a new name of Product Report. Next, I would like you to go to the Products Sold by Store worksheet. And we're going to begin creating our data model. So you're going to begin this on the Data tab. Looking for the Get and Transform group, you need to locate the button that says New Query. This time we're going to be using our Microsoft Access database. So we're going to say from a database, and then from a Microsoft Access database. You're going to select the World Rhythm database, which you should have downloaded from your Q drive, and we're going to choose Import. We're going to click on the Items Purchased table within that database. And then we're going to choose this Load To button. So you're going to choose the arrow next to Load, and we're going to choose Load To. This time, instead of loading to a table within Excel, we are only going to create a connection between the two files. So we're going to say only create the connection, but we do want to add it to a data model. So you're going to check the box next to the data model. And then you're going to click Load. It will load in the records from your database. It's creating the connection to all of the rows that are in your database. So let's create some more queries to different tables so that we can use the information and link it. So we're going to again go to our Data tab. We're going to choose New Query. We're still working from our database, so choose from the database, from a Microsoft Access database, and again select World Rhythm and then Import. This time we're going to be working with the products table, but we do not want to import all of the fields that are available in this product table. So we're going to click on the Edit button to allow us into our editor. we're going to click on the fields that we do want. So we want the item ID. Hold down the Control key and click on the category. Click on the subcategory, and again, your Control key must be down, and the description with the Control key down. Now you can release your Control key because those are the 4 fields we want. And on our Home tab, we're going to come over to the Manage Columns group and select the drop down. We're going to remove all other columns, remove other columns, so that it'll keep those 4 that we had highlighted. Next, in the Close and Load group, I'm going to choose the drop down arrow and choose Close and Load to. I still want to only create the connection, and I also want to add the data to my data model, and then click Load. And we're going to add one more data from one more table to our data mart before we work with our CSV file. So again, in our Data tab, we'll choose New Query. We'll choose from the database and from an Microsoft Access database. And we will choose our World Rhythm database to import from. We're going to click on the Stores table, but we do not want all of the fields again, similar to last time. So we're going to choose the Edit. We're going to select the fields that we do want. We want to click on Store ID, and then with our Control key down, we will click on the Store City, and again with the Control key down, click on the Store State. We are going to remove all other columns. So we're going to come up to our Manage Columns group, choose the Remove drop-down arrow, and remove other columns. Again, that will keep only the ones that we have highlighted. Next, we're going to go to our Close and Load drop-down arrow. Choose to close and load to. And again, we want to create the connection and add it to our data model. Now the last item that we want to add to our data model comes from a CSV file. So we're going to go to our Data tab and again choose New Query. This time we're going to choose from a file and from a CSV file. And we want to choose the 2-year revenue and then import. We want to click on the Edit so that we can make some changes to it. The first thing that we are going to do is we are going to click on the Applied Steps, this change type, to remove that. That was changing our zip codes. Next, we're going to go into the order ID. We're going to pick the fields we want. We want order ID, Control, and then we're going to choose the order date. We're going to choose the store ID, And then we're going to scroll over and locate the customer's zip code. When we removed that step, what it did was it caused this to be a text field instead of a number field, so that we would not lose our leading zeros. Since those are the only fields we want, we're going to come up to the Manage Columns group. We're going to choose the drop-down arrow under Remove Columns, and we are going to choose to remove the other columns. It'll keep the 4 that we had selected. Now next you can see that our order date field is not formatted as a number, and you can tell that because of the way it's aligning. So what we want to do is we want to transfer this to a type of field that is a date field. We're going to transform it. So we're going to go to our Transform tab, and up here in our Any Column group, you want to make sure that your order date field is highlighted. Next to data type, you can see it currently says text. We're going to click that drop down arrow and choose date, and it'll convert those to a date field. In the query settings, we're going to change the name of our query from 2-year revenue to customer orders. And now we're ready to load this information into our data model. So we're going to go back to our Home tab, and we're going to choose the drop down under the Close and Load arrow. We're going to choose Close and Load To. We're going to tell it to create a connection and add it to our data model. Then we will click Load. If Power Pivot is not installed on your computer, what you need to do is go to your Data tab and choose Manage the Data Model. It will ask you to enable this data model. So you will get an enable prompting, and that will finish the install for you. So if you get a prompt that asks you to enable the content, please click that. And now we can look at all of the data that is in our data model. So you can see the content in each of our queries by clicking on these bottom tabs. What we want to do now is we want to create the relationships between these queries. So we're going to go up here to the diagram view. So on my Home tab, in the View group, you'll see Diagram View. If you click that, you can enlarge your screen. You should see all 4 of the queries listed on here. If you want to move some, you can drag by clicking on the actual name of the query, and it will allow you to then move it wherever you want to place it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find common fields and create a relationship. So you can see that we have a store ID in the store field, or store query, as well as in the customer order query. So I'm going to click on store ID in one of those queries, such as in the stores, and I'm going to drag that down, and point to store ID in the customer order query. When I release my mouse, it will create the relationship connecting those two. I also have order ID in the items purchased as well as in the customer orders. So again, I'm going to click on order ID in one query, which is the items purchased. I'm going to drag that down to order ID in the customer orders and release my mouse to create the relationship. And then finally, I have item ID in the items purchased as well as in the products. So I'm going to click on it in the items purchased, drag it over to the products, and release my mouse, creating a third relationship. Those relationships will be helpful when we go to create our pivot tables in the next two parts. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close our Power Pivot for Excel, enable the content, and we can say yes to make it trusted, and then save your workbook. In the next two segments, we will look at creating pivot tables using our data model. This concludes part 5.